laughing now?
Yeah. I got your email, and you shouldn't have said it.
Man, don't joke with me.
They do not fully understand.
Ha, gotcha.
God damn it!
Oh my God. I'm pissed now.
Guys, we're just gonna have a great time together this afternoon.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Night Talk live. That's right, Night Talk live. It's all happening.
It's all happening.
That's right. Tonight I'll be talking about briefly the secret space program, the origins of Nazi UFOs, the bell, and DARPA research programs. Yes. All right. Maybe I should just talk with that echo the entire time. It might make things a little bit more impactful, make things a little bit more dramatic. Yes. Back for another Night Talk. I've been watching a lot of Gaia TV. And on Gaia TV, they have a multitude of different programs ranging from George Norrie's Beyond Belief to the Secret Space Program, which is the newer series that I've been just binging on. And I have some clips I pulled from the first season of the Secret Space Program. Fascinating stuff. Starts at the history, the origins of the Secret Space Program in Nazi Germany, and even some ancient alien stuff that we all know and love. And you might hear Hannah barking in the background. Yeah, she is just barking her head off. That little Sheba does not like me and is constantly warning me about a cat downstairs. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to hopefully plow on with this show, regardless of a dog constantly barking in the background. Now, you might say, hey, Mike, isn't it annoying that a dog is constantly barking in the background? Doesn't it drive you insane? And yes, it does drive me insane a little bit. Just a little bit. But that's okay. No one's panicking. We're going to get through this together. And it'll all happen. It'll all continuously happen together. And at some point tonight as well, I will, I'll definitely be taking phone calls. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I do that? That sounds like a nice thing to do, to talk to everyone out there. All right, let's transition over to some secret space program talk. Come on, let's do this.
Hi-oh! The shampoo.
All right. The secret space program is something that comes up over and over again on the Our Big Dumb Mouth podcast, and I am just obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with UFOs and how much governments really do know about this subject. And it all tends to go back to the Nazis. I'm drinking some water here. And so the Nazis, how do they come across this stuff? What happened? What's going on with them crazy Nazis? Well, there's a lot of people that were doing research on anti-gravity and even electricity's influence on gravitational fields, electromagnetism. Tesla was one of those people. Schrödinger was a German guy, a scientist who was looking into anti-gravity in the way nature creates vortexes or vortices. And in 1939, Hitler summoned Viktor Schauberger to Berlin for a meeting. At first, Hitler greeted Schauberger warmly and said to have called this meeting to discuss Schauberger's work. So, he showed up. The Victor showed up there. Hitler gave him a hug, high five, and said, "Hey, sit down. Let's talk about some crazy technology." But that meeting lasted for about 11 hours before Victor was allowed to leave. Now, during that 11-hour meeting, who knows exactly what was said, but you can probably assume that Hitler wanted to know about all this technology or possible anti-gravity technology that he was working on, and some theories on how he could apply that to the Nazi war machine. I have to assume they probably weren't talking about bratwursts and German shepherds. They probably tried to get down to business right away. And in this clip I have here from the Secret Space program on Guy TV, all my clips will be from that program. It addresses Victor's his work and now applies to the Secret Space program. Go.
So Schauberger was studying the behaviors of salmon as they would glide up through the waterfall, and trout as they would stay in one place in the stream and hardly have to do any movement, and they wouldn't be moving with the current. And what he determined was that there were certain what he called implosion vortexes that were created in the water by the way the water was spinning. Schauberger then created turbines that recreated this inside a mechanical array that was egg-shaped, and this became an anti-gravity engine. Schauberger was abducted by the Germans, kidnapped along with his family, tortured, and was then forced to participate in this Haunebu Bellcraft program.
Well, I mean, I guess what I said up front that he had a warm greeting with Hitler. Maybe I kind of put a little icing on the cake there. Turns out he was kidnapped and enslaved. Schauberger. Did I say Schallenberger? Schauberger is his name. Oops.
Viktor Schauberger is a physicist who created a device called a repulsine, which used vortex generation to actually create lift and maneuverability of disc-shaped objects. The interesting thing about his techniques is that Schauberger actually believed that we were doing things wrong in physics. He said that birds did not fly, they were flown, and fish did not swim, they were swum. So all you really had to do was tap into the forces that existed in the ether around us, and you could actually generate movement and theoretical performance like a flying saucer.
Well, that sounds all simple on the surface. Wow. I guess in hindsight, everything is simple. But they were tapping into this technology a long, long time ago. Even Tesla was experimenting with this and various others. And then I in this segment, even in this show, I'm not going to even go into the airships of the late 1800s and the early 1900s, which is fascinating in and of itself. I don't know if you want to consider that part of the ancient alien stuff or some other kind of event, but at some point down the road, I'll include segments about that because it's just insane that these people that were witnessing airships and even having these, even experiencing and witnessing crashing of airships in the late 1800s. It's bizarre. And what is Hana doing? I don't know if you guys hear that barking. Do you hear that? It is insane. My God. If only I could do something about it. Oh, yes. So, so let's go ahead and assume that the Germans, they knew something was going on. They adopted some technology. They were clued into it, and they decided to focus on some, I guess, more bizarre out there technology when it comes to aerodynamics and propulsion and even energy than the U.S. and the Brits were. And they focused a lot of attention on this. So much so, they enslaved entire families to do so. In this clip, it goes into saucer research.
An area of what is now Poland called Silesia. And it's really interesting because this is the area where the original Prussian researchers were situated back in the 1800s. It sent people to America to do airship research, in my opinion anyway. And it was also the area that Hitler protected to the very, very last moment at the end of World War II. If you look at the pattern of the Third Army of General Patton, they crossed the Rhine, and at that moment the big political prize is Berlin. We all wanted to beat the Russians to Berlin because to possess Berlin meant that we possessed Germany. Instead, Patton is diverted directly to Silesia because that was the area where they had the Nazi Bell, other technologies they were developing, super weapons that Hitler talked about, and that had to be protected at all costs. So it must have really galled Patton that he couldn't go get the prize, which was Berlin, and instead he had to go to Silesia and capture these German technology factories. The Nazis got very far in their technological research. Hitler kept telling everybody that there were going to be super weapons, wonder weapons that were going to come out of there that were going to save Nazi Germany.
Well, that didn't happen, at least not as well, or as far as we know. It may have saved some segments of the higher-ups, but as far as we know, and it is what history has told us, the Nazi regime fell, and ta-da, the U.S. and the Allies, along with Russia, won the war. Hooray! But, as we speculated over and over again on the show, that we believe that Hitler escaped. Documents have come out that some of the higher-ups have escaped to Argentina, possibly even Antarctica, which we won't even go into on this show. But it is, I think, within the conspiracy community, and even some people in the mainstream at this point are really dancing around the fact that, hey, yeah, some of this Nazi technology definitely was in use after the war, and higher-ups in the Nazi regime also escaped as well. I'm just taking that as a given at this point. I will take some phone calls as I play these clips, 614-388-9109. And if you have any favorite Nazi stories that you might have and like to share, please call up. So where does that lead us? That leads us, obviously, Patton wanted to go to Berlin. He was diverted to go capture this technology. But if I was Patton, like, oh, great, I get to see what the Nazis were working on. Yeah, he won't get the glory of trouncing over Berlin and planting the flag, but he would have access and would get to see the interesting technology they were working on, ranging from jet craft to even whatever kind of Nazi Bell technology they were working on. I would find that if I were Patton, I'd be like, that's far more fascinating. And if I was a part of that procurement of that technology, then maybe you could lead it down the right path and help out your own army. But that got swept away. That was all swept up into one of my favorite projects, Project Paperclip, which we talk about over and over again. And it's a bizarre thing because they do kind of frame it in these next few clips about Project Paperclip, about taking some of the Nazi scientists and higher-ups and bringing them over to America and giving them cheeseburgers and houses and making them work for us. So this next clip is about Project Paperclip, one of my favorite projects.
When Secretary of Defense James Forrestal visited Germany just after the war, he and others discovered the unusual technologies that the Germans had been working on. It was at this time that the upper levels of the United States military began to contemplate the unthinkable.
Project Paperclip, to me, is the point at which we made a deal with the devil. We sacrificed our soul for security. There was no reason we had to take on the Paperclip scientists. We had their documentation. We interrogated them. We interrogated Werner von Braun in Germany, Dornberger, all those guys. We had a lot of their documents. We found enormous caches of records and spare parts for aircraft and rockets and the V-2s. All of this we found. There was no need, really, to bring them all to the U.S. and make them citizens and basically replace the scientists that we had. Something was very fishy about that. And to this day, I think that that's the point where we just crossed the line.
So, yeah, right there, it said, look, we had the documents, we had the technology. was it really necessary to bring over these Nazi scientists? Yeah, one of Wernher von Braun really jump-started our rocket program, and you could assume that some of that knowledge lived inside their heads, and they knew how to apply the documents and their research much more quickly than if the U.S. scientists just happened to get a textbook on how to build a rocket and had to figure it out themselves. You ever get instructions for Legos, and you try to build a Lego set, and the instructions don't ever match up because you're missing a couple blocks? That's the way it happens in the space program. You need someone who builds the Legos to make the Lego. That's the way it goes. Instructions almost never work. Like when I put together this desk here for my podcast, I have like 5 extra screws. I think they got to go somewhere. So maybe I need to bring some Nazi scientists over here to help me with my desk. Where were they when I was building Command Center Alpha 1.3? Probably in Antarctica. Probably. So in this next clip, this is a follow-up to the Project Paperclip. And yeah, here we go.
Although there was outrage that the United States was bringing in the so-called enemy into its most secret institutions, no one really tried to stop Operation Paperclip. It was the Germans' research into die glacht, or bell technology, that made their entrance into America so important. The Americans had toyed with anti-gravity technology before through the work of Nikola Tesla and T. Townsend Brown. This interest was realized in the famous Philadelphia experiment, in which a ship was made to disappear and reappear miles away. But it was only with the migration of German scientists after World War II that the United States got a jump start on these technologies.
Anti-gravity technology has been suppressed since the first studies showed that this was very feasible, and I think that it dates from the Los Angeles air raid incident of 1942, where the Army and the Navy were able to retrieve some craft that were shot down by the artillery barrage. And when they studied it, they actually found that these technologies, anti-gravity, were feasible, but the war effort meant that they couldn't really investigate it until the war was completed.
And in the 50s, you had people like T. Townsend Brown and others openly talking about gravity control, gravity research, doing anti-gravity. It was a topic that was being tossed around quite a bit.
I find it interesting, and I don't ever bring up the battle over Los Angeles of 1942, which is a very fascinating event where I believe an artillery barrage shot at this object in the sky for hours. I mean, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, there was an object in the sky over LA, so everyone was on fucking edge, and then it was shot at continuously. And I'll read a little bit of this article. The Great Air Raid began at 2:25 a.m. on a clear moonlit night when the U.S. Army announced the approach of a hostile aircraft, and the city's air raid warning system went into action for the first time during the war. Suddenly, the night was torn by sirens. Searchlights swept the sky. Gun crews at Army posts along the coastline began pumping ACAC, or I guess anti-aircraft, into the air, ACAC, into the moonlight. The entire episode, 1,433 rounds would be fired. Okay, thousands of volunteer air raid wardens tumbled out of their beds and grabbed their boots and helmets, those who had helmets, and rushed into the night. Tens of thousands of citizens awakened by the screech of sirens and popping of shells jumped out of their beds and into the night. It was pandemonium. Although no bombs were dropped, the city did not escape its baptism of fire without casualties, including 5 fatalities. 3 residents were killed in automobile accidents as the crashes dash widely about the... Okay. So how long did this actually go on? I'm trying to get an actual timeline of when the air raid actually stopped in this battle over L.A. In any event, I'll put this up there in the show description. Fascinating stuff. I don't know the official story. Maybe I can. I'm just reading this on the fly of what how they actually talked this down or explained this away. It's like, oh, it was just swamp gas. We were firing at swamp gas for 5 hours. But there is photographs of something, some kind of light in the sky that they were firing at, and by all accounts, the shells were bouncing off of it. It wasn't making any damage. It wasn't taking any damage, and it just went away. Absolutely astounding. 1942, right after Pearl Harbor, and it probably was a show of force by some super secret Nazi technology. So, hey, we can get you in L.A., we can get you on the East Coast. What up now, motherfucker? So, that ends our Project Paperclip.
Ding.
Oh, boy, we got a ding-dong right there. Hey, what's going on?
Go figure that one out.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on?
Nazi UFOs coming to Earth.
Yeah, Nazi UFOs all the time, every day, coming to Earth.
Aliens! Oh, they come to Earth!
What's going on, Rob?
What's up, guys?
That's just me.
So
It's just Mike. I'm flying solo tonight.
all right.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yes.
So you brought up Paperclip,
Mm-hmm.
and you brought up George Patton.
Yeah, Patton was marching through Germany just for the fun of it.
I didn't know that he was. I mean, you were talking about how he was diverted.
Yeah.
The R&D area there.
Yeah.
He was making his push towards Berlin.
Yeah, it was a real race to get to Berlin before the Soviets, but someone, according to the clip I played, they thought it was much more important to get him to the Nazi research facilities.
Yeah. So I knew that. I didn't realize that until a few years ago. Like when I was in high school, like way back, I was into like World War II military history, and I loved Pat. I loved studying anything about this guy. And I always thought, I was like, you know what, this guy was such a hard-charging, he's such a fucking badass. He was out there ready to go take on the German army by himself. And I always thought, why was this guy sent, away from the main battle area? And not until I started, a couple of years later, like maybe like 3-4 years ago, that I started reading about Project Paperclip. And then I kind of all came together. And, George Patton, he died in a vehicle accident, right?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I know he's dead, but I don't know exactly how he died.
Yeah, so it was like right before the end of the war, right before Germany surrendered, and he died in some kind of freak vehicle accident, is what they're trying to say it was, where he was like T-boned. He was in one vehicle, and another vehicle went out of control, and he got T-boned, and pretty much he died from the injuries from that.
Yeah, they're saying they're saying on December 8th, 1945, Patton's chief of staff, Major General Hobart Gay, invited him on a pheasant hunting trip, and he died in an accidental vehicle crash.
Yeah. So that's I didn't really think about that until a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow. Now I started questioning that official story. I'm like, that's pretty important, pretty suspect.
I would say,
you think he might have been taken out because he knew too much? I
think there's a good rule of thumb here. The more money you have and the more power you have, if you're ever invited to go on a hunting trip, don't go. Remember when Dick Cheney shot that guy in the face?
Yeah, that's that guy that went with Dick Cheney.
Yeah, don't go. If you're like a poor redneck or just some guy, middle class, go out hunting all you want with your buddies, though. The first year you get, don't go. Ain't gonna look good. Ain't gonna work out.
That's. What do you think? You think that's possible? Do you think maybe he knew too much?
Look,
he was trying to use that against somebody.
I think it's entirely possible, because if Patton was diverted, and by the clip that I played there, I'm suspecting that he was. He was a very competent general. He was able to get shit done, win battles, and move his army very quickly. I suspect that what if he did not only capture Nazi UFO technology, but also saw it and examined it and realized how important it really was? I mean, General Patton probably had a lot of influence, not only in the Pentagon or pre-Pentagon, but also with the politicians. They probably respected his opinion, and they probably didn't want him muddying up the waters with his opinion of what they should do with the technology. So I think it's entirely possible they would off somebody who knew exactly what they had, and then they can just funnel it away.
Yeah, quite possible. He was the first casualty in the secret space war.
Yeah, so it was Patton. He and his car collided with an American Army truck at a low speed. The driver, Gay, the other passenger, was only slightly injured, but Patton was hit on his head by the glass partition in the back seat. He began bleeding from the gash in his head and complained that he was paralyzed and having trouble breathing. Taken to the hospital, Patton was discovered to have a compression fracture and dislocation of one of his vertebrae.
Yeah, pretty shitty way to go.
All non-medical visitors, except Patton's wife,
especially when you made it through 2 world wars.
Yeah. No one was allowed to see. Yeah, no one was allowed to see him except for medical staff and his wife. So other people that were, like, let's say if he had a subordinate that he was really close with, they couldn't even see him. He did say this is a hell of a way to die. But I think that's a interesting theory. I don't know if we can verify with anything, but why not? I like it. Let's go with it.
You're right. It's not really completely verified, but it's an interesting line of thinking.
I like it. Let's make it history. Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate your call. You got anything else for me?
No, that's it, man.
All right. Take it easy, bud.
Okay, thank you for your call.
Yeah, why not? General Patton knew too much. They took him out. All right. Yeah, we did the Project Paperclip, and then we'll go into some of the weirder stuff about the Nazi UFO stuff. I talked about this stuff before. I've talked about the Vril Society, the channeling that was done, and how some of this weirder technology, or the knowledge of, entered into Nazi society, or entered into German society. And I have a clip here about this channeling. Who's calling me? And why? I don't know why. Someone's calling me on I don't know why that's happening. Here, let me hold on a second. Let me open it back up again. If someone's calling in, call back in again, because I had a different Skype open. I have like 3 Skypes open at once, because Skype was automatically integrated into a Hotmail thing, and I got that going on. I don't even know what's going on. Caller, go ahead.
Go figure that one out.
Oh my God, yay.
Oh my God. Take a look at that thing. You see that thing? Oh my God. Hey, Mitchell, what's going on, buddy?
I'm curious if you ever heard of a role-playing game called Delta Green.
No.
Oh my God, Jay.
No, I have not. What is Delta Green?
So Delta Green is basically Call of Cthulhu set to the modern age. It's pretty much X-Files, the role-playing game. You and your teammates are part of a secret government organization called Delta Green that is dispatched to handle all the Cthulhu-esque type, like aliens and Bigfoot and type conspiracies that are actually true. But your job is to, whenever there's an incident out in the world, you sort of contain it and try not to go insane from learning about the knowledge.
Have you played this?
Yes. Yeah, I run a couple of games, so I got the books and everything. But the reason why I bring it up, because you only have to have a percentile or like a generic set of dice, and it might be an idea that I could try to run like you, Joe, and Clown Baby through a game sometime for like a Patreon type feed.
I like the idea a lot. I've often considered recording some of my role-playing games because I have a lot of fun, and it'd be something I would be into doing. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not familiar with this. I
would run it, and you guys would just be players, because obviously people want to watch you guys actually try to like play through these conspiracies and see how you handle them, and if you're able to contain it, and like just stuff like that.
I definitely like the idea, and I'm mostly familiar with the Palladium system, like Rifts, Heroes Unlimited, D20, and the second edition D&D is as far as I've gotten. But I'd be open to this.
Cthulhu is super simple. You just basically try to roll under your skill, which is usually 100. And it's like a D100 is all you have to worry about. That's 95% of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think it's a fun idea. And we could definitely stream it live and, put it on the Patreon. And I've been wanting to get back into role-playing a little bit. And maybe do it like once a month or once every few weeks. And, it'd be kind of fun.
These would be like what they're called one-shots, where it's like, like a 3-hour session and like you're done with it, like for that quote-unquote episode.
Yeah. I think that'd be kind of fun to do. Definitely send me an email. I got the website, Delta Green, up on the screen. I don't know. I kind of like the idea.
Quick start rules. That's all you need. It's free. You don't even have to buy books or anything. Just be willing to play.
I'll have to convince Joe to do this.
Meet up do a session sometime off podcast where we create your characters. That way, when we get to it, we just
play.
Start into it.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Of the because most of the time it's in modern times, so you don't have to worry about trying to. It won't be a stretch for Joe to like kind of actually play a character.
I'm going to warn you that I play very goofily. I do everything I can. I fuck shit up. Like if someone's like, hey, there's a Bigfoot over there, I shoot tires out of cars and I ride around my rims.
In Call of Cthulhu, half the time your characters either die or go insane.
Okay,
so
good.
They're kind of expendable. Like it promotes that type of play.
Okay, good. Because I'm going to be horrible, but it'll be fun. I actually look forward to talking with you about it and organizing something. I think we can make it happen.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you an email and with the quick start rule, and that way you can. But whenever we can do it on like a weekend type deal, I figure that'd be something that you could offer your Patreons there, because if it starts ticking up, they'll increase it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think it'd be definitely a fun piece of content. Hey, thanks for calling in, Mitchell. Good idea.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you the info. See you.
Bye.
All right, everyone, this is what we're going to be doing.
Ah, yes. So back to the Secret Space Program and the channeling and the Vril Society, and where they perhaps got some of this information concerning alien technology. Here we go.
Experts suggest that Maria Orsitsch was not only a professional channeler for a secret society, but also part of a mysterious Germanic culture of mysticism.
There's actually this history of an area of Germany called Prussia, which was actually a nation of its own back in the 1800s, where there are a group of, industrialists with a lot of money who were fascinated in all these ancient mysteries, who looked at the ancient texts through physicists' eyes and had ideas about how to create airships and spacecraft and how to define gravity.
Researchers have tied Maria Orsitsch to a secret society called the Vril. This society performed exercises to awaken what the ancients referred to as chi. The legend of Maria suggests that one night she was channeling for a group of social elite when an otherworldly being came through and claimed he was from the star system Aldebaran. He had a message. Maria, still in a trance, began writing in a mysterious language and drawing sketches for a spacecraft. Experts were brought in to decipher the language and the sketches. These experts suggested that the language was in Sumerian, and the drawings resembled a device a man named Viktor Schauberger created. During the early 1920s, Schauberger had invented something called the repulsine, which was a disc-shaped object that used various air vortexes that
some people consider me to be repulsing
the laws of physics. Maria not only drew almost his exact invention, but gave instructions on how it would work, written in a Sumerian language.
Maria Orsitsch made sketches and they were kind of very technical in nature, something that a woman of her background would probably not really have a great knowledge of. And actually from those sketches, the Vril Society actually made different prototype devices, craft. One of them was called the RFZ-2, that actually flew.
The legend continues that Maria gave the drawings and Sumerian texts acquired from her channeling to Rudolf Hess, hoping to continue the funding. But experts suggest that Hess used this as an opportunity to advance his career with the Nazi Party.
Rudolf Hess was a deputy to Hitler and had been one of the mainstays of the rising Nazi Party. By the time the war started, Hess, who, by the way, was very steeped in occultism, he was into big for the spiritualism and everything else.
Experts suggest that Maria's contact experience could have united a world in peace, and that was the purpose of the beings from Aldebaran reaching out to Maria.
They had everything that they needed to actually build flying saucers. They had the reactor that would create the anti-gravity effect. They had the repulsine, which was also German, that enabled them to actually control where this thing goes and how it maneuvers. And they had this back in the 1930s and 40s. It's amazing how all these different areas of research are all German. They put them all together, and what you get when you put them all together is a flying saucer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mr. L in the chat says every picture he has seen of this Vril Society member, Maria, was Ostrich, or what's her name? Ostrich, is a looker. Yeah, she's quite a looker. Although the one picture I have up on the left of her, she looks like an old witch, but the one on the right, she looks like a movie star of that era. But if you read more about the Vril Society and these channelings that the creatures they contacted could have been reptilian, and they were looking for host bodies. In that clip, they make it seem a lot more nicey-wicey, that, hey, we just wanted to talk to some humans and exchange some knowledge and give them knowledge of this technology that they could use so we could communicate with each other and shake hands and make hamburgers and hot dogs. They don't make it sound so nefarious in that clip, but everything I've read surrounding that, it wasn't so nicey-nicey. It was batty-watty. Sorry for the baby talk, people. I'm trying not to go insane here. There's some dogs barking in the background.
Oh, my God.
Yes. Okay, so for the final clip I have for the Nazi space program, secret space program, it concerns the Nazi bell, which we talk about over and over again. It is the foundation, I believe, of a prototype of anti-gravity technology produced by a government, funded and researched, and used to build other craft. The craft like I have up on the screen, like the Haunebu. The Haunebu was a predecessor to the Nazi bell. Used very similar technology, but the Haunebu had armor on it, and it didn't melt the faces of the people inside, unlike the Nazi bell. So how did the Nazi bell work? Well, in this clip, we're going to figure out kind of how it may have worked.
In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and documents began leaking out of the former communist countries. Many of these documents had never been seen before. In 1995, a large group of documents were discovered in Poland, which tell a very interesting story about a fascinating object called the bell.
The bell is an interesting story that has come out. It's one of those stories, incidentally, that's come out since the German Wiedervereinigung, the German reunification. It's a story that, in my opinion, lies at the very center of the Nazi UFO myth, this idea that the Nazis had field propulsion flying saucers, and, you know, they took secret trips to the moon and Mars and what have you.
The bell's a propulsion system. It's basically a kind of reactor, and that reactor is the power source for a thing called the Haunebu.
This SS Obergruppenführer, his name was Jakob Sporenberg.
Jakob.
And he was tried by a Polish war crimes court after the war for the crime of having murdered 60 Germans that were part of this project.
Whoops.
In order to keep it secret. And in his affidavit before the Polish War Crimes Court, he describes details of this project called Die Glocke, the bell. He describes a device that's bell-shaped. It's about 12 to 15 feet high, if I remember, and it's about 12, maybe 12 feet wide. It's bell-shaped. It's described in terms that make you think it's either a ceramic cover or a ceramic metal. It's cryogenically cooled, either with liquid helium or liquid oxygen, something that's going to super cool it. And on the inside of this device, there are two rotating cylinders. Schauberger describes that they poured into these counter-rotating cylinders a substance called Serum 525, which was described in the affidavit, supposedly, as a very heavy, dense, viscous, gooey metal that was a deep maroon or cherry red color. There were enough details that you could sit down and kind of reverse engineer the thinking, the physics thinking that the Germans may have been employing in this device.
We also have heard from a variety of insiders and from the papers and the data that came out that the Germans also had developed an interesting system based on the so-called red mercury, in which the rotation of mercury in a highly charged electrostatic tube leads to an anti-gravitational field as well.
So this Serum 525 is put into these counter-rotating cylinders, and they're spun up, to high speed in opposite directions. And what this is going to do, just to explain a bit of the physics for a moment, it's going to cohere the rotation of the atoms and molecules of this substance on one plane. Okay, so in other words, it's going to align the axis of rotation of these things. Schauberger also describes that it makes a buzzing sound or a hissing sound. So the Germans actually nicknamed this device Der Bienenstock, the beehive, because it's buzzing, it's making this buzz.
I actually have a clip of the buzzing sound that he is referring to.
Yeah.
There it is. It sounds like Alex Jones a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. There we go. That's what I have on the secret space program for this episode of Night Talk. I'm sure I will have more clips as I continue to trudge on and pull clips from that program. Fascinating stuff. I absolutely love talking about this stuff. It's a piece of history that is not really talked about on mainstream news or even in schools or universities or kindergartens or preschool. They're not talking about this stuff, not like the way we do. 614-388-9109. I'll be mostly happy to take some phone calls while maybe I'll talk about a little bit about the DARPA projects that some nice user of Reddit decided to take his time and put together a little list about the public projects being funded over there and researched. And I thought it might be fun to kind of read it with you guys. I'll read it over a little bit. Might not be fun to listen to me read, but it might be fun to kind of do this while we wind down the show. And I have it up here on screen. I comb through DARPA's public projects so you don't have to. I do the same thing with Alex Jones. We do public services around here. Woo! So the first DARPA project is 100G program. The 100G program is exploring high order modulation and spatial multiplexing techniques to achieve the 100 gigabyte per second capacity at ranges of 200 kilometer air to air and 100 kilometer air to ground from high altitude aerial platforms. Super high speed Wi-Fi, motherfuckers. That's what we're talking about. Yay! Where's my Google? Where's my internet? Sucker. I'm paying for this shit. Give it to me. But that's a lot of radio waves flying through the air.
Ding dong.
Gotta imagine it's not healthy for you. Daddy Spaghetti, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, Mike. How you doing, man?
I am doing pretty good.
God damn it.
God damn it.
God damn. What is on your mind tonight?
Vril and channeling and all that shit. That's always interested me. How we got a lot of technology through means of channeling, and the beings on the other side either say they're aliens or demons or angels. You can take it back to John Dee. You could take it back to a lot of places. But I actually wonder how much of human technology has been unearthed through channeling and where it's coming from.
Yeah, when you get into some of the secret space program and even some of the rocket scientists and people on the bleeding edge of science, they skew into occult practices sometimes. I don't want to call like channelers or psychics all occult practices or occult. They're drawn to like ritual sacrifice, but there are good documentations or good documents to show that, hey, some of these guys that are into the occult practices, they do have crossover into either NASA's program of rocketry or German. I think it might happen more often than not. There was a guy, I'm trying to bring up his name right now, where he was a leading researcher in rocket development for NASA, and he was given quite a lot of leeway within NASA and in the Pentagon to develop rockets for space exploration and for military purposes. But he started getting too nicey with the Aleister Crowley crowd. And
Parsnick or something? Jack or something?
Might be, yeah, Jack yeah, that might be it, yeah.
Yeah, that guy was a total weirdo. But, yeah, I know what you're talking about. He was the one who solidified rocket fuel by adding asphalt to it.
Yeah, and that guy, I'm going to see if I can bring up his name after I talk. But once I guess the higher-ups found out that he was in this or leaning to some of these occult practices, they said, hey, you're out, buddy. You are out. You're not working for us. And then he tried to go sell his services to the Israelis, and they didn't want that to happen. So they tried to block his travel. And then mysteriously, he died in an explosion in his garage.
Right, they took him out. They don't want that asset out there. But, the channeling stuff, and you say you don't want to call them a cult, but by definition, it is a cult because it's hidden. I think that's what a cult means. Isn't it like hidden knowledge or like you have to look for it?
Yeah. It just, the term occult has some negative connotation, so I don't know enough about the definition or what is considered a cult and what isn't. So I try to dance around because I just don't know enough about it.
Well, I'll say it in a way not to be negative, but like it is kind of a cult because it's away from what you would accept into general society, and rulers have been using occult practitioners for years. Even like some of the ideas for clocks came from the occult because it was court astrologers in China developing a timing system based on the phases of the moon, so that the king can have sex with his concubines to have children.
Yeah.
So like it's just weird how channeling is such a part of our technology, and science has to dance this edge of staying away from what they call the paranormal to keep itself validated. But a lot of the proof in science comes from paranormal practices, it seems, and it's just always been so weird, so fascinating, and just a crazy topic to me.
You are absolutely right. The guy's name was Jack Parsons, and I have up on screen right now from just a big article about who he is and his links to Aleister Crowley and all that kind of stuff. But to go back to science and the paranormal and occultism, I believe much like everything else, there's a couple different tiers of knowledge. We have the general knowledge for everyone. That's where everything you learn in preschool, high school, and university. And that's the knowledge for everyone. And then you have a different tier of knowledge, and they also have scientists up there that will and are actively investigating this paranormal stuff, UFOs, and psychic phenomenon. Well, at the same time, the common knowledge dismisses it all as hogwash and fantasy, but at a different level, obviously, they take it very seriously. But they can't let us know about that. Same with the UFO phenomenon. Same with I would say the afterlife, paranormal, and ghosts, and some of these portals and missing 411. They probably know a lot more about what's going on with missing 411 than they're ever going to tell us. They're going to say it's wolves or bears or people just disappear sometimes. Bullshit. They know more.
They have to know more. They got too big of a dog in the fight not to know more.
I got a small dog out back here that is just continually barking, by the way. Can you believe that?
What?
I have a small dog barking behind me. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, actually, I can't pick it up on the phone.
Good. Thank God.
Oh, shit, I just thought of something.
Oh, no.
I don't know. This might be a little bit off topic.
Go for it.
A bit, but
Go for it.
all the anal probing, if it's Nazi UFOs, the anal probing makes sense.
If it's Nazi UFOs, why? What do you mean?
The anal probing would make sense.
Am I missing something?
Germans love butt stuff, right?
Ah, yeah. They are the masters of shit porn and piss porn.
Hey.
Yeah, they do.
Shiny stuff.
Yeah, they do. It could be just to humiliate people, to make them feel really degraded, and traumatize them. And
yeah, it could be like a part of MK Ultra or some shit.
Yeah, very well could be. Who knows what they're doing, and who knows when and when all these abductions occur, and what program is it? Is it the standard UFO, or is it a military run abduction program? And then which faction? We talking about the Majestic 12 faction, or the better good faction, the Com 12, run by the Navy? It goes fucking deep into this shit.
Yeah, it gets so crazy you get lost in the fucking paperwork.
I do.
Trying to find out what. But anyways, man, that's about all I have, Mike. I mean, interesting topic as always. And y'all doing a Saturday?
Oh yeah,
or
we're going to be doing a Wednesday show, and we'll be doing a Saturday show. Yeah, absolutely. We're working on stuff for the Wednesday show. I'm sure we're going to be talking about the Vegas shooting coming up again, I think.
Is it finally coming to light or no?
No.
Yeah, of course
No,
not.
they're stonewalling again. We'll get into it. The courts are the courts are fine. It's the police department that's stonewalling. So we'll get into that.
Fucking fantastic.
All right, thank you, Teddy. Have a good night.
All right, take it easy, man.
Bye.
Excuse me.
Oh boy. Teddy's always a good caller. All right. I'll leave the phone line open while I read some more of these DARPA programs. We talked about the 100G program, talking about flying super hi-fi Wi-Fi data transmission through the air. And then number 2 is access, the ultimate goal for DARPA's accelerated computation for efficient scientific simulation, is to demonstrate new specialized benchtop technology that can solve large problems in complex physical systems on the hour timescale compared to existing methods that require full cluster scale supercomputing resources that can take weeks or 2 months. So I'm assuming they're talking about some sort of quantum computing right there. Because you can just throw processors and rack servers and whole mainframes and rooms and computers at something. It's still going to take a long time to compute that stuff. So how are they going to really go around that? I would say quantum computing. Number 3, active social engineering defense. The Active Social Engineering Defense, the ASED program, aims to develop the core technology to enable the capability to automatically elicit information from a malicious adversary in order to identify, disrupt, and investigate social engineering attacks. If successful, the ASED technology will do this by mediating communications between users and potential attackers, actively detecting attacks, and coordinating investigations to discover the identity of the attacker. So DARPA is trying to develop a technology that inserts itself in the middle of a communication and to determine if the social interaction is malicious or not, and then responds if that social communication is determined to be bad or influential in a way. Then how is it just going to create its own like AI propaganda to combat that? Let's call it what is like Russian bots. That's fascinating. And they probably already have this going on already, like on Reddit and other forums. We might have some DARPA fucking bots in the Slack chat. I don't know. I'm taking a look at some of you guys and it might be happening. Might be all happening. Number 4, advanced plant technology. What are these, like redwoods with iPhones? What is this, a shrub with a BlackBerry? The Advanced Plant Technologies program seeks to develop plants capable of serving as next-generation persistent ground-based sensor technologies to protect deployed troops and in the homeland by detecting and reporting on chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive threats. Such biological sensors would be effectively energy independent, increasing their potential for wide distribution while reducing risks associated with deployment and maintenance of traditional sensors. So they're trying to use weeds and shrubs and bushes to detect threats to the environment. Is this like the M. Night Shyamalan movie where the plants come alive and start attacking us? And then if you have plants that can detect threats, why can't you have my bush or my houseplant detecting social threats? How are they going to wire these plants together to communicate back to the home plant? The queen plant, if you will. This is all goofy stuff. But you got to imagine that it's happening already. If they're talking about this publicly, I'm assuming behind the scenes, we got plants with shotguns and body armor ready to be deployed. And spying you. Your houseplant. I'm starting to sound like Alex Jones. My houseplant spying on me. My houseplant took my super male mentality. It's all jacked up with boners. All right, I'll just skip down here. Number 7 is nanoscale products. The A2P program was conceived to deliver scalable technologies for assembly of nanometer to micron scale components, which frequently possess unique characteristics due to their small size, into larger human-scaled systems. The goal of the A2P program is to achieve never-before-seen functionality by using scalable processes to assemble fully three-dimensional devices that include nanometer to micron scale components. So this is like Transformer stuff. This is bizarre stuff. I want to know how much money they're spending on each one of these motherfucking programs. So I can put my car in my pocket. I can go to work with my car in my pocket. I don't got to pay for parking. That'd be great. Fucking A. All right. Number 10, BRICS. The Biological Robustness in Complex Settings program aims to transform engineered microbial biosystems into reliable, cost-effective strategic resources for the Department of Defense, enabling future applications in the area of intelligence, readiness, and force protection. Examples include the identification of geographical province of objects, protection of critical systems, and infrastructure against corrosion, biofouling. What is biofouling? I'm going to have biofoul much later after I eat some cheese. Constantly biofouling at work. Protecting against corrosion, biofouling, and other damage. Sensing of hazardous compounds and efficient on-demand bioproduction of novel coating, fuels, and drugs. That sounds like Star Trek stuff. Except for the biofouling. I don't think Picard ever biofouled when he was on the USS Enterprise. Did you ever do that, Picard? Did you ever biofoul on the USS Enterprise? No! Sorry, dude. I thought you did.
I know that.
Number 12, Blue Wolf. Unmanned underwater vehicles have inherent operational and tactical advantages, such as stealth and surprise. So what is Blue Wolf? The UUV size, weight, and volume are constraints by the handling, launch, and recovery systems of their host platforms. However, what is this? The Blue Wolf program seeks to develop and demonstrate an integrated UUV capable of operating at speed range combinations previously unachieved on current representative platforms while retraining traditional volume and weight fractions for payloads and electronics. Oh my God. Super underwater vehicles. USOs is what they're talking about. But this is quite a list of DARPA products. DARPA programs. I can't even get through it all. Satellite repair, deep exploration, automated deep natural language processing. Oh my God. Engineering living materials, enhanced attribution, Excalibur. Handheld laser guns is what Excalibur is. It's happening. Gremlins. I'm gonna have to read a good chunk of this on the next Our Big Dumb Mouse show. I'm going to go through this and pick out the most interesting ones because I got to get out of here. Our time's up. I got to get out of here. You know that. Our time is up. I'm going to start playing the outro music, if you please. All right. My God, look at this list of DARPA projects. It's just insane. There's too much here. Whoever did this, amazing job. I'm going to give him a good shout out. The guy who did this is BMDUBD. And this is stickied on Reddit Conspiracy. That's right. It's all happening. Be back on Wednesday.
I know that.
And we'll be talking about all things current events, news. I'm pretty sure we're going to have, like I said, some Vegas shooter updates. At least what's going on with the release of some of the information and videos and audio, all that stuff. It's going to be happening on Wednesday on Our Big Dumb Mouse.
Survival procedures, Mr. Sulu.
Yep.
Kirk here. Spock here.
Mike here. All right.
This movie sucks shit.
Yes, it does. It's not the best movie. I've done better videos than this, but this is not bad, all right?
Fucking shit.
Thanks for everyone who called in. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. If you want to join the Slack chat, give an email to ourbigdumbmouth@gmail.com. If you want to interact on Twitter, just take a look at OBDM Pod. We're also on Instagram at OBDM Pod. Joe is running the Facebook. You can look at OBDM News on Facebook right over there. Yes. And if you want the audio-only version of this, right here, you can go to Patreon and subscribe. There's a RSS feed over there. So it's like a different show over there. I'm going to be adding more content, giving life updates, everything that I'm watching, going over all the vitamin supplements I take, going over my workout routine, how many days do I actually make my bed in a given week. We don't know. The mysteries will be revealed. Oh, yes. All the mysteries will be revealed on the Patreon. Oh, yes. All right, everyone. Shablagoo. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Fuck you. Go home and play with your kids.